The scene opens with a young boy named Simon who is enjoying the time with his girlfriend Fabian. They live together, work as cartoon artists, and keep themselves away from their families because of their profession. After a few months, Simon decides to visit his family on the day of his father's 60th birthday party. He also brings Fabian along because he wants to introduce her to the family. He meets many family members at the party, but there is a mysterious woman. He doesn't recognize the woman at first, so he asks his mother about who she is. The woman is his father, Carl's new secretary. Carl is a psychiatrist who is often involved in affairs with his secretaries. He's enough for having multiple girlfriends and has a reputation for transforming his patients into secretaries and then into girlfriends. Even though Simon's mother knows about Carl's infidelity, she can't do anything about it. She's deeply troubled by her husband being involved with other women, but she is helpless as she also works under Carl in the clinic. After the party, Simon and Fabian go back to their apartment and start working on their cartoon art. Suddenly, Simon's mother arrives and says that she needs to talk to him privately. She tells him about Carl's new secretary, that her name is Sonia, and that Carl is planning on going on a trip with her. The mother explains that if he goes with her, then their marriage will be forced to end. In this difficult situation, the mother asks Simon to substitute for her at the clinic so she can go on the trip with Carl instead. Even though Simon is reluctant to leave Fabian behind, he takes pity on his mother and agrees to work at the clinic. The next day, Simon is at the clinic when her mother is going on the trip with Carl. After saying goodbye to his parents, Simon is left alone with Sonia at the clinic. Simon sits down with Sonia and starts talking to her. She complains that if he didn't agree to work here for a few days, she'd be able to go on that trip with Carl and strengthen the relationship. However, Simon doesn't take her too seriously and says that his father has too many girlfriends. After some time, Simon goes inside the clinic. Sonia ponders on what Simon said and then confronts him about it. She says that her relationship with his father isn't what he thinks it is and that he should keep his opinions to himself. Later that night, Simon keeps thinking about what Sonia said and concludes that Sonia and his father are probably involved in a serious and meaningful relationship. The following day at the clinic, Simon is standing by the window when he overhears Sonia talking to someone on the phone. She mentions something about having a family and kids and says that she has nothing. She also asks the person on the phone not to waste her time. At that moment, Simon realizes that despite spending time on the trip with his mother, his father is still talking on the phone with Sonia. To confirm his doubt, he calls his father's phone and, as expected, the line is busy. Later that day, Simon and Sonia are working on transcribing Carl's lectures and interviews. Both of them found the job very exhausting. After a while, Simon goes into Sonia's office. She explains to him that Carl says that he loves her and openly expresses his love for her in front of all his co-workers. However, she is upset that despite being in love with her, Carl is enjoying a holiday with his wife. Meanwhile, Sonia becomes very emotional and starts crying. She also expresses her desire to start a family by going on a trip with Carl and marrying him because she wants to have children of her own. Simon feels uncomfortable at first, but he knows that his father is in the wrong, and he offers Sonia some tissues. He goes near her to comfort her, and she pulls him in a hug. Then, all of a sudden, she grabs him and kisses him. However, Simon pulls back immediately because he understands the complexity of the situation. He leaves the clinic and steps outside to think about whatever is happening. He knows that he can't get closer to Sonia because his mother trusted him to keep her away from Carl. Still, he can't stop thinking about her. The next morning, Fabian tells Simon that they have an important cartoon show in 2 weeks, but they haven't made any preparations because he's so busy with family matters. She seems disappointed in him for abandoning her. At the clinic, Simon goes to apologize to Sonia for what happened, but she takes it lightly as if it's normal for her to kiss random boys. He asks her not to tell his father about the kiss, but she says that she already told him. Simon wants to know more about her, so he starts looking for something about her at the clinic, because she used to be Carl's patient. After checking some file cabinets, he finally finds her file and learns that Sonia is a patient with severe suicidal tendencies. The next day, Sonia notices that her file is missing and she starts looking for it. Eventually, she finds it on Simon's desk, snatches it, and rushes to her own office. She's trying to hide her suicidal tendencies from everyone, but Simon already knows all about it. He goes to the room where Sonia is crying, so he approaches her. He tries to take the file away, but Sonia turns and kisses him again. This time, Simon can't resist her anymore, so he kisses her back passionately as well. They start making out in the office, but Sonia pulls back and says that someone could walk in here, so they must go down to the basement. Sonia opens the door to step outside, and Simon is forced to hide behind the door to make sure none of the other co-workers see him. Once all the co-workers leave, Sonia leads Simon down to the basement room. He knows that he shouldn't be doing this because he's betraying his mother and Fabien's trust, but he's already falling in love with Sonia. She leads him inside the room and starts taking off her clothes. Simon can't control himself any longer. They end up making passionate love in the basement room. Afterward, she asks him to get into her car so she can drop him. Before leaving the car, she asks him to visit her sometime. Simon kisses her cheek and assures her that he will visit and then leaves. While Simon is riding back home, he spots Fabien with one of her friends at a restaurant. He confronts her, and she reveals that the cartoon festival is only a few days away, and she needs someone to help her. Simon doesn't like the idea of her working with someone else and starts doubting that she's in a relationship with her new friend. He decides to follow Fabien into a mysterious basement, but only finds her completely dissolved in her work there. He confronts her and asks why she changed so quickly, and she explains that since he's so busy with his family, she has to find someone else to help her prepare for the festival. Hearing Fabien's disappointment, Simon is sad and confused. He thinks about leaving the work at clinic as he doesn't want to lose his girlfriend, but he can't betray his mother either. At that moment, Simon gets a call from his mother. She asks him to keep working at the clinic on her behalf for a few more days because she and Carl are having a good time on vacation. This makes Simon's life even more difficult than it already is. Later that night, Simon takes Fabien to a nightclub where they both enjoy the time. However, he still feels guilty and worried throughout the night. Eventually, he decides to tell her that he is cheating on her. This makes her very angry and she leaves him immediately. While Simon is still sitting at the nightclub, he gets a text from Sonia inviting him to her apartment. Without thinking, he goes to see her. They have a small chat and start kissing each other. Soon after, they make love to each other again. After a while, Sonia asks Simon to stay for dinner. They gossip about everyone at the clinic and end up sleeping together. The next morning, Simon wakes up at Sonia's apartment and finds a note from her informing him that she's going to the market to buy a few things. Meanwhile, he finds a photo of Sonia and Carl and realizes that his father must have given this apartment to Sonia. Suddenly, Carl enters the apartment and is shocked to see Simon there. However, Simon starts asking counter-questions to his father about what he's doing there. Carl explains that he owns the apartment and is here to grab a book. Carl quickly understands why Simon is there, so he explains how Sonia wants a baby and he cannot fulfill her desire. During this conversation, Sonia arrives, but she ignores Carl completely. Instead, she walks over to Simon and kisses him. She asks Simon if he slept well, and he just smirks in response. Carl warns Simon that he will tell his mother all about it. Later, Simon goes to meet his mother and decides to tell her about his relationship with Sonia. She is shocked to hear this and drops to the ground. She blames herself for letting this happen, but quickly realizes that there's no point in crying over something that's already happened. In the next few moments, Simon's mother embraces him in a hug and accepts his relationship with Sonia. A few months later, Sonia gives birth to Simon's child. Sonia's life is all set now because she has an apartment with Carl and a baby from Simon. However, she's still trying to make Simon love her. Now, Sonia lives with Simon and his family. She hands the baby over to him, and he looks happy for a moment before feeling confused again. He ponders about how his life was settled 1 year ago with Fabien, and now he's just entangled in his family's complex ties. The moral of the story is to be careful about who you're getting involved with. If you make the wrong choices, then you might end up hurting your entire family. And that's all for today. If you were Simon, would you fall in love with Sonia and forget all about Fabien? Let us know in the comments below if you enjoyed this video. Hit like and subscribe.